Are the roads safe here in Florida? Well, I was in an accident this past weekend on Sunday, and if you live in Sarasota and you remember that Fruitville was closed for a couple hours, I was on the front line of that accident. In fact, I was one of the 3 vehicles that were in that situation. So Florida safety, that's a big concern when it comes to our roadways, because the population of Florida has almost doubled in a very short period of time, but not the roadways, and the infrastructure is making it challenging. And there are areas that I would not call safe because it gets so crowded, and we're definitely seeing more accidents than we've seen, or at least I have experienced in being a local. Now, I was in an accident this weekend, and I was also in an accident in the last year ago where a guy had rear-ended me, and I had my video camera out. I filmed the whole thing, and he took off. So it was a crash and run situation. But when I got to a safe place, called the police, showed them the video, they went to his house, they arrested him, and his insurance company settled. And my car was totaled, and it wasn't something I was planning on. And I was a little frustrated about the whole experience because at that point my car was paid off and I wasn't looking to get a new car, but I ended up getting what I wanted after that point. And I got a little truck, and it was a truck that took me some time to find, and I like my little truck because I travel a lot. But the safety aspect is a big concern here in Florida because of the population and the growth. And not all the roadways are equipped to handle what's going on. So anyway, this crash that happened, it was Sunday morning. My lady and I, we went out to Triumph, which is a really cool experience out east, and it's a zip line experience where they harness you up and you're totally safe, but there's this illusion of fear because you're walking on logs and unstable areas, but you're safe the whole time, which makes it so fun. So after Triumph, my lady and I went to a winery. Now, full disclosure, she told me she was hungry, and after the event, it was hot. We went out to this winery. They were offering wine, and I don't drink. And I've professed that for the last couple of years. My lady reminded me, she goes, "You're not gonna drink. You haven't had anything to drink, and you're not going to start now, even though we're at a winery and they're offering you wine." And I thank her for that because I didn't realize how critical that was gonna play out in my day, not being 100% on task. And I always found that when I drink, I'm just not 100%. I might be off just 1%, but that 1% could be a fatal thing. And of course, I would never get in a car drunk. But we're in Florida. It's a place where people come and they party, and there's a lot of alcohol, and I just don't drink. So my lady and I, she was hangry, and she didn't want me to drink. And I just said, "Look, I'll take you home, and I have things to do today." And I took her home, and I'm so glad I did, because the way the day played out from that point, I was in a car accident, and I'm glad she wasn't there. And I'm real glad she told me not to drink, because that if I had, I think I would have been off my game, and the outcome could have been different. But I'm coming down Fruitville Road, and I can see this white car in my lane. Now, Fruitville Road is a 2-lane road. It's a country road. And with the population doubling in the time that it has, there's a lot of traffic on Fruitville Road, even on a hot Sunday day. And I can see this car coming towards me. They were passing the car in the other lane, but they're swerving. And I sensed something was wrong. And I don't know why. I would think they're probably drinking, but I don't know that for a fact. But they were coming my way, and to pass, they would have to speed up. And they were speeding, but they were speeding coming right at me. And I realized that, this was a dangerous situation. But my anxiety level at that point was probably an 8, because I felt, look, I can solve this. So I pulled right. And when I pulled right, they didn't pull back in their lane. In fact, they actually pulled left to come towards me. And I realized I'm going to be hit. I don't have a choice in the matter. It's not up to me anymore. And this whole thing took about 2 seconds, but those 2 seconds of time just slowed way down. And I can remember vividly what that was like in just 2 seconds. I had a little bit of time to think. And I did the same thing. I just pulled my truck into the ditch, and my truck was then submerged in water, and my new truck, right? But after I did that, this car then, the truck behind me, where I was driving, could see that my truck went into the water, and he didn't have the 2 seconds to think like I did. So he actually swerved, from what I understand, but they hit each other head on. And from that point, it was tragic. I'm in the ditch. I could see that the car had spun around and people were screaming. The guy behind him called 911. The paramedics came, the jaws of life, and they pulled these people out of the car. And 3 people went to the hospital that day. And it was just terrible to watch, because this car, this truck that was coming my way, 2 seconds later, it had basically broken half, and it became a ball of metal with 2 people fighting for their life inside of this thing. And it was just a terrible thing to watch, hoping that they're alive. And to this day, I don't know if they are alive, but I wouldn't be surprised given the situation. But they're walking, they took them out. The Bay Flight came in, took them away, and I left that situation safe. And as I said, I was in an accident a year ago, and I was just sitting and somebody just hit and run. So how safe are the roads here? Well, here's what's interesting about that is Sarasota, where I live, and this is a beautiful place. You can see this. I'm on Siesta Key right now. When you live in a nice place like Sarasota, so many other people want to live here too. And that's why our population keeps growing, is the demand is here. And as the demand here, we have more cars on the road, and the infrastructure doesn't always keep up with it. Well, Sarasota, I think, has done a very good job with that. I mean, it wasn't too long ago that they started introducing all the roundabouts in Sarasota, and we have all these roundabouts where you don't have to stop at a stoplight, you just have to go around. For me, they work really well, and I know when I travel to other parts of Florida and they don't have these roundabouts, these are so efficient to travel with. Also, right at the intersection of University and I-75 is a diverging diamond. All this traffic travels in the opposite direction to make it more efficient, and it works out quite slick because that's an intersection that gets a lot of traffic, but it moves pretty quickly. So overall, I feel safer in Sarasota, but there's parts of Florida I don't feel as safe. And the reason being is the roads just haven't kept up. There are areas where the infrastructure in Florida is so bad where you have 4 or 5 lane roads, and they're still building homes on these roads. So the people that live in those homes have to back out, back in, the mail's delivered, it makes traffic slow, and you have aggressive drivers. It's just very challenging in other areas. It would be hard to live on a home that has a 6-lane road in front of you, but you gotta be careful. The infrastructure is taking its time to catch up. The other thing that's been really cool with Florida are these toll roads. Now, when I first got into it, I'm thinking, wait, you're gonna charge me to drive through Florida? Well, there's a toll roads that go around Orlando, and they cost a few dollars, and from that point, you bypass all this traffic, and it's so well worth it. I'm a big fan of the toll roads. In fact, from Sarasota, I can get to the Orlando airport in about 2 hours. And from that point, you can get on the Bright Line and you can be in Miami in about 3 hours. So there's things in place like these toll roads, the Bright Line, which I'm a big fan of on the East Coast, that are making the traffic easier. But there are areas where you have single lane roads. Driving itself, it can be very dangerous. You don't know what's ahead of you. In fact, it's funny because a lot of people are so afraid of airplanes, to get on an airplane, yet it's more dangerous to go into a car, especially even in a situation where the infrastructure is not built out and you have a lot of traffic. You're more risk of getting hurt in a car than you are in an airplane. So that morning when I was at Triumph, there was a lady that had climbed all the way to the top of one of the poles, and all she had to do was sit down and she would zip line home. She was totally safe. She was harnessed up, it was on the thing, but she was afraid. She didn't want to sit down. The fear overcame her, and they had to rescue her from this pole. But I thought, gosh, she's at more danger going into her car home than she was up at that pole. But a lot of us don't think about the car. So some takeaways from this are, number one, I'm glad I don't drink, and I'm glad I didn't drink that day, because if I was off my A game just 1%, that could have been the 1 second that I needed to make that quick decision to go in the ditch and save my life. So I'm grateful for that, and I don't want to ever become a problem for somebody else. I'm also grateful to be in Sarasota. I mean, we are in a progressive place in Sarasota. The infrastructure is improving all the time. Other parts of Florida, it's just taking a little more time to get there. But driving itself is not always safe. So in closing, I hope I've been helpful to you, and if I have, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, and I wish you well.